We're about to show you something that is unusual. At PopTech, we try to push the envelope on how we do things. And one of the ideas we had is to have one of our speakers give a talk while drunk. This talk was hidden for some time because we weren't sure if it's ready for delivery. And with the acceptance of Professor Ariely, who delivered the talk, we're finally releasing it. This is part of a series of podcasts that we call Backstage, where we talk to the speakers about their experience giving the talk, what happened since the talk, and how they went through the preparation for it. This is unusual. It has highs and lows. I think that it's part of our effort to not just look at talks as a solitude experience, but also as something that stays with you after, that you get to revisit years after, and maybe use that to think about your own experience and do better. We have a center that tries to look at advanced performance, and together with PopTech, we're now trying to see how can we take the content and make sure that everyone gets something additional from just being an audience. Stay with us. All right. So we're talking about the behind the scenes of a talk that's coming live from a PopTech conference that you spoke at years ago.
Yeah.
This talk was not available for several years.
Hidden.
Because it's unusual. And a few weeks ago, we decided that it's time to release that. So maybe I'll give the audience in 1 second the context. PopTech conference, people come and give talks. You gave a talk. And then we had this idea to have one of the speakers.
So I gave a standard talk, research. I don't remember what it was, but PopTech is a more lively, experimental conference than anything else. And
so you say, what happened?
No, the idea was to get the audience to vote on which talk they want to listen to again while the speaker is drunk. And I got selected to give the same talk again while drunk. And then you were in charge of getting me drunk. And you got a team. You want to tell how you picked?
I think we had people who went to American college and got low grades. We knew that this qualifies them to get, they must have done something else in college, and this was it.
And we got to play, so I did not go to college in the US. I did not know all of these drinking games. And we got to play lots of drinking games that are usually played with beer, were played with vodka. So there was a vodka pong, and there were all kinds of games. And I don't drink much. I get drunk very easily, and this was hours of drinking. Started very early in the morning, like maybe 9 a.m. And then 3 hours later, there was the talk.
So the plan was for you to give the same talk you gave before, just drunk, and we'll see kind of what, but you took it in a different direction.
Yeah. And basically what happened was that I was planning to giving the same talk, and I walked on stage, and I had kind of a very intense emotion from the meeting with the audience. And I think partly it's because it was the last day of the conference, and I knew some of the people from before, and there were a few very good days at the conference. So it wasn't like coming up on stage in front of strangers. It was talking to people I kind of knew, and kind of sorry that the conference was ending. And I had this kind of emotional wave. Probably all of these things together, plus the alcohol. And as I started, I just felt that I was in a very different emotional state than talking about research. And I decided to share something very personal that was very much on my mind, right? So we all have multiple stories on our mind. What's the most interesting research I'm doing? What's the deepest personal experience I'm doing? What's the biggest questions I have? And it felt wrong. to do this. It felt like it was a very intimate, emotional moment, and I went forward with describing a very difficult personal story.
So I know you for now at least 2 decades, and I've never heard this story. It was a very personal story, not at all expected. And I think you said in the beginning, alcohol partly is removing inhibitions, which gave you the kind of courage and feeling of kind of right moment, right experience to tell a very personal story I've never heard before. It was a story, without spoiling it, about your experience as a burn victim and you helping others in the same condition. Maybe for the audience who doesn't know even the backstory, how did you get burned? What's the backstory?
So I got burned from basically an explosion of a military flare that got exploded next to me. Lots of magnesium, right? These are the bombs that people send up to the sky to light up a battlefield. Very, very intense. So I got one of those, 17 and a half.
So where most kids basically begin their, I don't know, adult life, you spent how many years in hospital?
Almost 3 years. Almost 3 years in hospital. And it's not just, there's lots of pain and lots of things involved, but it's also very much separated from society. So lots of pain. Melzak, the pain researcher, says that when people are in serious pain, they are pain people. Like pain defines everything about you. And it's true. The first maybe year or so, I didn't think about the future. I didn't have plans. I was just thinking about the daily pain. So it's both pain and treatment and a different life trajectory, but also getting disconnected from life. There's something about just being in bed for 3 years and observing things from an outside perspective. That is a very, very different way to live. So I've lots of stories about that, but there's something else about this that I think is worthwhile talking about, which is that after I gave the talk and I was no longer drunk, I said, I can't have this out there because giving a talk while drunk, what would people say and think? And I felt it was socially unacceptable to put a drunk talk out there. It's not serious. It's not scientific. It's not it's not good. But the last few years, I think we've seen this a cancel culture and fear and social worry. And I had my own adventures with people that were upset with me for all kinds of reasons, all the way from helping to bring about COVID to doing all kinds of other things. And at some point I realized, it's a really bad idea to succumb to social pressures. And in most of my life, I haven't. Like if I think about most of what I've done is I haven't really cared about other people's opinions, and I did what I thought was the right thing to do and so on. And this was a unique case where I had an image that this was not a good idea in other people's minds, and I will therefore not do it. And I realized that was a bad decision, and maybe we should fix it.
I'm very glad you did. I think it's a remarkable talk, both as a person who knows you really well. It's a side of you that I think people don't get to see unless they're your friends, because there's a professor image that you have to maintain. And I think that it also really opens a floodgate, I think, of people doing things that they're not supposed to do live. Yeah. I think we at PopTech were kind of ourselves not sure, should we do a drunk talk and so on. If it weren't for you, it probably wouldn't happen. But I think the mix of you being game for this and us saying, let's try something new, really, I think, did something that this talk is, I've watched it now multiple times back live and now years after. It is very moving and very special. I'm very glad you.
Thank you. But I think the more general point is, how do we get a bit more brave to try new things and make mistakes, and I do want to do more of those things. So maybe for the next PopTech, let's think about some things that would.
This is not Fiji water. We spike your water.
with a substance you can't reveal. No, but let's continue with this tradition. Let's think how the next PopTech we're going to try and challenge ourselves in a better way. Like do things that might go wrong and not play it safe. I think it's a good strategy.
More question about the talk. So in the talk you speak about giving advice to people that have experiences similar to yours. You talk about specific ones and so on, and you say a few things that kind of would stand out to everyone who listens. You say, if I would go through it again, I would not want to do it. And maybe the advice should be just end your life and not go. These are all things that, as kind of a classic talk, you're supposed to blank out and so on, because every...
By the way, I haven't seen that.
So maybe I'm reminding you.
I have no memory. I have no memory of what I said, and because I was drunk, and I haven't watched it. I just thought it was the idea of not releasing it was bad. But yes, this is a real thought. So
I'll tell you why I'm asking, because I feel there's a high chance that someone who's watching this talk right now is in a bad place. And I think that your story, your courage to say it, your ability to say it while drunk and so on, I think would resonate with them. So I'm basically wanting you to say, what would be your advice and thought for someone who's watching it right now?
So I talking about the ending life is I would say that, so when I got injured, I was all consumed with pain. So there were no really thoughts about the future. But for many years, I thought that if it would happen again and I knew everything I knew, I would say, let's end it at the moment of the injury. There's no reason to continue. The first 3 years were very miserable. Like if you told me that the first 3 years would continue like this, I would say there's of course no way to continue. Imagine this is the line of zero. Like life is not good nor bad. The first 3 years were awful. After that, it was some ups, some downs. But if you think about the total disutility of the first 3 years, what do you need after that to make it worthwhile? And up to about age 50, if you asked me about this, I would say wasn't worthwhile. So, like at year 4, I didn't say I want to kill myself now because I already suffered the first 3 years, but I thought from the beginning it would have been much better not to go through these first years for the happiness after that. And I even thought that if I ever have kids and they would suffer the same thing, I would not, and I had a choice of to keep them alive or not, I would think that it's not worthwhile. Now, I will say that something happened at age 50, and at around age 50, I kind of felt that I've paid my due to society and felt much more freedom to be who I feel like being, became more playful, less worried, more focusing on what's important to me, and things have turned better. So I think I have two separate thoughts. One is that I do think that people underestimate the badness of injuries, and I think there are many cases where it's just not worth it. So that's one. But the second thing is that I'm disappointed that I only got that phase at age 50 of living in a more free, less constrained way. Now, it's easier to do when your kids are older and so on, but still.
It's actually, so you're, the audience who's watching right now and looks at your life would say that you're a remarkable success story from very early on. Successful book author, best-selling author, professor, like at a very high-ranking university. You have tons of start companies. Like you have, so
yeah, my CV looks very good even before age 50.
Yeah, and it looks like to someone who's going through a hard time, they would imagine if if I have that life, things have gotten well.
Look, life after the injury. So I got injured at, let's say, 18, age 22, life became slightly positive. And if you look at up to age 50, my life were positive. It wasn't that they were not positive. I'm not saying, oh my goodness, my first book on the New York Times bestseller was a fantastic moment. I did lots of very interesting things. I'm very happy with what I did. Just the depth of misery that humanity is capable of. I mean, we as people is very disproportional to the amount of happiness that you would get. Like you would need, after this amount of pain. And by the way, pain did not stop, right? You've known me for many years. I still have pain. There's still things going on. You would need like 3 years of constant orgasm to make up for it. But by the way, it is interesting that we're much more attuned to pain than to happiness, right? It's very easy to create pain. There's lots of things that create pain, and finding happiness is much, much harder. So it wasn't as if I didn't have a positive life at that point. I had a positive life. It just didn't make up for the misery. So it's and it's not as if I would say, oh, I only had 20 years of an okay life or a positive life, and if I had 50 of that will make up for it. No, it was just kind of on a scale of good. The bad was just terrible. The good was okay, good. Or sometimes better, sometimes worse, but it just didn't balance. I felt it didn't balance itself. Like if you ask me, would I do it again? Like you say, okay, put yourself up at age 45 and say, for the positive things that I had after age 22, would I suffer the first 3 years? I would say no. I'm not doing it again. The benefit is not worth the cost. Now, if you to ask me now, I would still say, you know what? I'm really not looking forward to 3 years of the same hospital. But if you ask me now, I would say it's worth it. So, like that's what I mean by doing that. Like, would I say this is a good trade-off between 3 miserable years for the top? It's not to say that the good is not good. It's to say that there was a huge cost to pay. But I think that the reason it is good now is that because I'm somehow entered a different phase of life, and it's not as if I'm just having fun. I'm working hard. I'm doing a lot of things, but I have a tremendous sense of agency and freedom, and I have more free discussions with people, and I try to be helpful in the way that I feel like, and I follow adventures.
I should say that you're the funniest guy I know, and to kind of tie it to the previous topic, one time we had this long conversation about kind of the meaning of life and so on, and I asked you if something bad happens and you're in life support, when should I end it? You said when I stop being funny. So I think that that is
Still the answer.
Different topic, but still kind of related to the talk. You speak there about alcohol in the context of addiction. People have negative kind of experience of alcohol, and they equate it to drugs. I think we speak MDMA and mushroom. They kind of all somehow lumped in the kind of talk to kind of what do you think about addiction, and using alcohol as a kind of as a anchor to that, and in light of the fact that some of those things that alcohol gives us or that drugs give us are also removing inhibition, allow us to do things that we don't want to do.
Yeah. So first of all, let's take something more complex than alcohol. Let's talk the opioid epidemic. And people are very upset, of course, with all the people who died from the opioid overdose and so on. And I think that in all of this discussion, people also forget how wonderful opioids are. So with all the misery that I had during my time, I also had moments of relief or hours of relief by opioids, right? Without that, it's me and lots of other people whose life was saved by opioids. People talk about it's very sad that people are overdose and addiction and so on, but we also have to remember that opioids have been an amazing invention. Like we wouldn't want humanity not to have opioids. And opioids are an interesting thing because they silence physical pain, but they also silence emotional pain. And when you look at the opioid epidemic now, people use it for all kinds of reasons. And the same thing is true for alcohol. You know, alcohol is not just about feeling high. People self-medicate. And I think as a society, we need to ask ourselves, why are we in a society that people have the need to self-medicate? Where's the misery coming from? You know, the brain doesn't separate my knee is hurting. I mean, we can tell the knee is hurting from depression and misery and so on. At some level, all of these negative things are accumulating, and you experience a badness that comes from all kinds of things. And we're upset with the people who are addicted, but we've created a society where there's just lots of misery. And then the other thing is that we're discovering amazing things about the positive side of some drugs. So there was this Nova party. There was a party where on October 7th, lots of people at the party, lots were killed, lots were injured, lots were kidnapped. But scientifically, what is amazing about that party was that lots of people were on drugs. And for the first time, you can say what happened to people who were on drugs while in a highly traumatizing event. And it turns out that some of the drugs were protective. It looks like MDMA, for example, was protective. Alcohol and pot were not. So if you look at natural line and you say people who were on alcohol and pot were less protective than people who were not, and people who were on MDMA were more protective than so on. And I think we're in an amazing period of trying to understand this relationship with all of these drugs. There was an amazing study a couple of months ago on ibogaine. And not only is it helping with PTSD, but it looks like it's making people's brains younger by about a year and a half. They got people to take the drugs in Mexico, where it's legal, and got them to do the fMRI in the US. So I do think that all of these things are very mixed. There's negatives and positives to these drugs. There are things that we should take a hard look at ourselves as society, and there are things that we need to figure out how we use them for bettering ourselves. And in terms of reducing inhibition, you could say the fact that we need a drug to help us reduce our inhibition is a little sad. Like I would like us to have less inhibition to start with. And I think, by the way, part of my journey after 50 is that I have just less inhibitions. I think inhibition is something that crushes us. Like if we think about inhibition as we move throughout life, we're less happy, right? If you keep on being concerned with that. So I think let's take the good, try to reduce the bad, and take a hard look at us as society about why do people need those drugs.
Perfect. And the other thing that comes in your talk that I kind of wanted to revisit is you really, really dump on marathons. You say marathons are terrible and people who do them are miserable, and you kind of speak about that as like short-term unhappiness for long-term gain. But here's what I want to ask. In the last 10 years, you've been dragging me to a marathon. Seems like a joy compared to like hiking mountains for months and so on. Explain.
Not months, a month. So it is amazing. So we go hiking once a year for a month. And there's something quite amazing about having the time to talk and to think and to go back to topics. And every year I have a topic that I want to make a decision about. And I use you as a decision. And I hope you're doing the same, right? Every year we're thinking and rethinking and working out something. And then the scenery is beautiful. And there's time to think and there's time to talk. And
there's wine also.
There's also wine. And yes, and I'm looking forward to it. And it will happen next month. We're starting this year, Patagonia. I'm really, really excited.
Here's my last question. In your talk, and I guess somehow in our conversation right now, you're giving advice. And in the case of the talk, you give advice to a person in a tough spot. What's your advice to people who listen to us or in a tough spot right now, how to kind of do better?
So when I was in hospital, I kind of developed a strategy to separate myself into the experiencing self and the observing self. And I kind of felt it was partitioning the pain. So I was having like 100% pain, and I was kind of saying, okay, I'm 75, 80% experiencing the pain and 20, 25% observing it. Is it sharp? Is it pulsating? What kind of type is it? Am I more afraid of it? And so on. And I'm kind of find myself that I'm doing the same thing politically right now. You know, experiencing a lot of turmoil. And I find that I'm experiencing the complexity of what's happening in Ukraine, in Gaza, in Israel, in the US. But I'm also trying to separate this observing part where I say, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. We get to live in a world where the US president says X, Y, and Z. And you know, what? Can you imagine a world in which we get to experience that? My goodness, what will happen? What will do this? So for me, partitioning this is incredible. But in the case of hospital, there was a third actor. There was the experiencing, the observing, but there was also an actor with some control. Not a lot of control in hospital, but some control. Let me try to delay my treatment a little bit, do it a little slower, take the medication here and there, or do something like this. And I find myself that I'm trying to do the same thing now. So I'm trying to do kind of, okay, so you wake up in the morning, you read the newspaper, you're experiencing whatever it is, but trying to have the observer with a little bit of sense of humor and wonder. Like, my goodness, we're going to learn a lot about human nature from all of these terrible things. It doesn't make them good, but it just makes you have another layer of thinking. And then the other one is I'm saying, okay, and how do I gain some control? And what can I do in some of this? So that's my advice for myself and for other people as well.
I think it's a rare and unique thing that we can have a talk about a painful topic that's delivered with lots of humor and charm. And I think that of the many talks I heard at PopTech over the last 20 years, it's one that I think many people should watch and kind of give themselves time to think. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.